أين يتجه العالم الإسلامي بصفة عامة، والإسلامي العالم الإسلامي بصفة عامة والعالم العربي بصفة خاصة، إذ لم يتضامن علماؤه مع دعوة الأحمدية للخلاص؟
The question is, where is the Muslim to if their ulama don't cooperate and the Ahmadiyya movement?
You see, whenever God sends someone from himself, it has many reasons why God decides. He knows best. But the Holy Quran speaks generally of those reasons. The most important of the reasons why God sends someone himself, even if a new religion is not revealed, according to the Quran, is the reason of general corruption of the religious people and their misinterpretations of the scriptures which were revealed before them. That's one very important reason which has been repeatedly mentioned in the Holy Quran with reference to the Jewish people and earlier people following other religions. And the second reason, there's so many, but the second important reason, which I think is very strongly applicable to this situation, is that the leadership of religion becomes corrupt. And they don't care what happens to religion. They care for their own ulterior motives. They begin to sell the revelations of Allah, the ayat, the signs of Allah, at cheap prices. Which means they talk of religion and make it a sign, an instrument of their own personal advantage. So this selling of the verses of Allah is not like going to the market and there they're sitting, get this verse and that verse. It means those verses are distorted in their meaning so that they become advantages to the people who do this, the leaders who do this. And they do it to serve some purposes. For instance, sometimes governments want an edict on an issue. And they go to the ulama and they say, we want a supporting evidence from this or that book. They say, there you are, give us time, and then they bring out something, you can do it, go ahead. Now, when ulama become distorted in any religion, I'm not talking of Islam alone, then is the time for God to take the leadership in His own hand. This reminds one of the process of martial laws, where the political leadership fails to establish law and order and discipline. Although I am not in favor of martial laws, but it happens, and there is no other alternative. Then martial laws are imposed and the leadership is taken away from the people's decision, is imposed. Now that is wrong because it is man-made. But when God imposes martial laws, it's always right. It's like declaring, none of you is now capable of leading my people. So I'll take the matters in my own hand and make the appointment where I like it and where I deem fit. And then the same people, the ulama particularly, return back and say, why this man, why that man? He's small, he belongs to ordinary people, he doesn't belong where we think the dignity lies and the honor lies, and things like that. And this proves the point that it was the right time that Allah took this decision. So He asked, will they distribute the blessings of Allah as if they had taken the decisions of God into their own hands? So this reaction of the society fully endorses God's decision, the rightness of God's decision, that He moved right in time. So when this happens, Allah does send somebody to save a people whom He wants to continue. If He wants to wipe out a people, then this doesn't happen like this. Then sometimes God does not care. Let them do whatever they like. They're permitted to pursue their own several paths and meet the natural consequences. But where a religion is alive, and God wants to keep the people alive, then this does happen, that God always interferes at certain times. So this is how I read the meaning of the prophecies about the Mahdi and the Messiah. When this part is translated, then I'll turn to the second part of the question. This introduction was essential for my answer to the question which we have just raised.
يقول أمير المؤمنين أن الله تعالى عندما يرسل أحدا من عنده إلى الأمة أو إلى الناس فإن له أسبابه بالطبع، والقرآن يوضح لنا فكرة عامة عن هذه الأسباب، وتتلخص في أن الناس يكونون قد انحرفوا عن الدين وأساءوا فهمه وسلوكهم تغير بناء على هذا، ثم إن القادة الدينيين أيضا يكون قد نالهم الفساد وأخذوا يستخدمون هذا الدين لمصالحهم الخاصة، والتي عبر عنها القرآن بأنهم يشترون بآيات الله ثمنا قليلا أو يحرفون كلام الله. يقول أمير المؤمنين أنهم لا يذهبون إلى السوق ويبيعون هذه الآيات، وإنما المعنى أنهم يستخدمون تفسير هذه الآيات بالطريقة التي تناسبهم وتخدم أهدافهم وأهداف من يعملون لهم، بدليل أن بعض الحكومات تأتي إلى هؤلاء العلماء وتطلب منهم فتاوى لمشاكل خاصة أو لموضوعات خاصة، فسرعان ما يطبخون لهم ويجهزون لهم مثل هذه. فإذا بعث الله إنسانا لإصلاح هذا الموقف فإن هؤلاء العلماء ورجال الدين يلتفتون إليه ويقولون لماذا اختاره الله، ويكون موقفهم منه موقفا عدائيا، وهذا بالضبط يبين أن الله سبحانه وتعالى قد اختاره في الوقت المناسب، لأن هؤلاء الناس قد فسدوا وأخذوا يستخدمون الدين استخداما غير صحيح. ويرى حضرته أن هذا هو وجهة نظره فيما يتعلق بمجيء الإمام المهدي والمسيح الموعود.
Yes, that's right. Now, when God sent someone to save the people, the question which was addressed to me is already answered. If somebody followed him, he would be saved. If he didn't, then he will go the path of ultimate destruction and head towards the precipice, from where sometimes there is no return. So this is understandable with reference to the history of religion, not only Islam but all religions. Whenever God sends someone and people don't pay heed, they are given a time, of course. They are given some more respite and more opportunity. If they continue to follow, then their time of respite or respite, both pronounced both ways, is prolonged. And more opportunities are given them to turn to God. As long as it happens, such people are not destroyed as a whole. Such people are given more chance to reform and turn to God. But if there is a time when they put an adamant resistance and a final no, and say, all right, do whatever you like, we are going to take this attitude and continue in this attitude, and we reject you, and we are going to oppose you tooth and nail to the maximum created from the face of earth. When this hostile attitude is taken, like it was taken by Pharaoh, for instance, and many others, then the punishment comes much quicker than otherwise. So this is the liquid state today, as I find it. Although there are certain countries where very, very strong hostile attitude was taken against Ahmadiyyat, particularly where Masih Maud was raised, the Indo-Pakistan continent. The same applies to Bangladesh, where repeated efforts are made to demolish Ahmadi mosques, to destroy Ahmadis, to kill Ahmadis, to rob them and so on. And it's going on. Even today, there is a large threat by the ulama that we are going to attack Fort Bakshi Bazaar and other places, and we are going to see to it that no Ahmadi is left alive. Man, woman, child, all alive. This is the stage where it reaches. It is not always necessary that the whole people are punished. Sometimes repeated punishments come from God to warn them, to open their eyes. And one after the other, another chance, and yet another chance is given. So that process sometimes is quite long. And we can only understand it with reference to the religious history. We can't invent things on our own that God should do this or should have done that. Now, look at Pharaoh and his total denial of, and his commitment to oppose the message of Moses. 9 signs were shown, one after the other. And people think that as if these things happen very quickly. Not so. A sign of punishment came, it heavily punished the people, particularly the ruling people, and when they started turning towards not the message as by way of acceptance, but turning to some sort of repentance, saying, perhaps we did overmuch, so Moses prayed to God, leave us alone and this and that. This was a general atmosphere which was created after they saw a sign. And that must have happened, of course it did happen, that the punishment was withdrawn by God. And natural punishment, when it's withdrawn, it's not withdrawn suddenly and in a matter of a few days. Like floods come and devastate the whole large areas, and then God sees to it there's no more water, let them sort of wipe out the remains of this punishment for a while and restore the normal life once again. Then started behaving this in the same manner. No, you go to this and go to that. We're not going to listen. It happened. It happens. That sort of thing. So then God said, all right, another one. So if 9 lives were given to the people of Pharaoh, spread over many, many years, then how can we forget this in application to the people of Islam today, who I believe are far better and far more capable of preservation, they have far greater right to be given more time, because the future of mankind depends on the people of Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Even if they have gone wrong, I believe God will give them more time. And secondly, the response from the Muslims today, although it is very inimical on the part of some governments, as far as the people go, the more they listen to the Ahmadiyya message, the more they begin to respond positively nowadays. More in the sense that never before did I notice natural, spontaneous response in favor of the message as it is happening nowadays. So I don't say, in view of what I have discovered, that there will be an overall punishment will do deep damage to them, turning them into things of past. I don't believe it. I don't hope it would ever happen. But I know that as long as the punishments from Allah, which will come, nobody can stop them, are responded to wisely. And after every calamity or every mishap or every worsening of the political situation, the economic situation, after every attempt on their part fails to improve the things, if more people turn to the message of Masih Maud, Islam, these problems will be resolved one after the other. For a while, more time would be given, And then before the next punishment, they would have to, I mean, in the sight of God, before the next punishment, if people turn wrong again, and particularly in relation to Ahmadiyyat become more cruel than before, then there is, of course, the danger of yet a greater punishment to come. But I have already spoken on the subject of my personal assessment. I believe that the response from among the Muslims all over the world is becoming far more encouraging than ever before. In the light of this, the Muslims, inshallah, will receive more favors from Allah with the passage of time, and they'll be given more time. But as far as certain governments are concerned, I can't say that of them. Some governments were very vicious. They're absolutely, completely given over to their own ulterior motives. They don't care for Islam. They don't care what may happen. There are certain ulama in the same countries which do not care what becomes to the Muslims vis-a-vis Islam and Islamic values. What becomes of Muslims vis-a-vis Islam and Islamic values, which is, if they have become dacoits, if they become thieves, if they become robbers, if they become fornicators and abductors of children and liars and everything, the mullahs don't care. They sit tight over their chairs of authority. But the moment they begin to turn to the message of God, then they lose all patience and they become violent. Now these are the things which do attract the wrath of Allah. So there are two different things. One, the people of Islam. I believe the people of Islam are innocent and simple-minded, and they are being misled, and they do not insist in their folly. When they listen to the message, at last, when it reaches them in the pure form as we convey to them, the response is beautiful. So they will be saved by Allah, they will be spared. But these leaders of the folly, those governments who, knowing things, willfully do injustice to the path of Allah, to the people of God, then I don't think they will be spared long from punishment. Please.
يقول أمير المؤمنين أن موقف الله سبحانه وتعالى بالنسبة للأمم يتوقف على الدين، هل هو دين حي أم دين له مرحلة خاصة. أحيانا الأمة يتركها الله لتلقى مصيرها إذا انحرفت عن المسار الذي وصاهم وأمرهم به، وأحيانا إذا عاندوا عنادا شديدا وأصروا ورفضوا رفضا نهائيا فإن الله سبحانه وتعالى ينزل بهم العقاب الذي يستأصلهم من الأرض لأنهم لم يعودوا مستحقين لهذه الحياة. أما إذا كان الدين دينا حيا ويمكث في الأرض لفترة طويلة فإن الله سبحانه وتعالى يختار شخصا لإعادة الأمور إلى نصابها. ويشبه أمير المؤمنين هذا الموقف بالأحكام العرفية أو الأحكام العسكرية التي وإن كان لا يوافق على هذا النظام ولكنه أحيانا يكون ضرورة. إذا فسد السياسيون في بلد من البلاد فإن إحدى السلطات تأخذ الحكم في يدها لتعيد الأمور إلى نصابها. هذا يشبه نفس الموقف، فإن الله سبحانه وتعالى عندما يرى أن القادة ورجال الدين قد فسدوا وأنهم لا يديرون الأمور بالطريقة التي يرضى عنها فإنه يأخذ الأمر في يده ويختار شخصا من عنده لهداية هؤلاء الناس وتصحيح الأوضاع. هذا من ناحية الشكل. ويرى حضرته أن الأمة الإسلامية هي الأمة الحية، والدين الإسلامي هو الدين الحي الذي قدر له أن يبقى إلى أن يشاء الله، ولذلك فقد أقام الله سبحانه وتعالى الإمام المهدي والمسيح الموعود لذلك. أما موقف الأمة فهو يختلف من العامة والخاصة. الحكام ورجال الدين لهم موقف، أما الناس فلهم موقف آخر. وأرى حضرته أن الناس عموما عندهم استعداد طيب، وأنهم قوم بسطاء، وأنهم ليست عندهم تلك العيوب الموجودة في رجال الدين وفي الساسة، وهم يقبلون على الأحمدية، وليس كثيرا ولكنهم يقبلون على الأحمدية. وبإقبالهم هذا على الأحمدية أي على الإسلام الصحيح، فإن الله سبحانه وتعالى يمد لهم الزمن ويعطيهم الفرصة ليتحسنوا أكثر وأكثر. وهذا نجده في تاريخ الديانات الأخرى. فمثلا عندما ذهب سيدنا موسى إلى فرعون وإلى قومه في مصر، فإنه أعطاهم 9 فرص. كانوا يعصونه وكانوا يخالفونه ويحاربونه، فينزل بهم العقاب، فيتحولون ويستغفرون ويصححون مسارهم بعض الشيء، فيرفع الله عنهم هذا العقاب، ثم يعودون مرة أخرى إلى الخطأ فينزل بهم العقاب. فإذا كان هذا تكرر مع قوم موسى وفرعون 9 مرات، فإن الأمة الإسلامية التي قدر لها أن تبقى إلى ما شاء الله أولى بأن تنال كثيرا من هذه الفرص. فإقبال الناس على الأحمدية يفتح لهم أيديهم ليتحسنوا وليقبلوا على الإسلام. أما هؤلاء الحكام ورجال الدين فإنهم في كثير من المسلمين فيهم مفاسد وشرور شديدة، ولا يهتمون مطلقا لأي أمر ديني، وإنما يهتمون بمصالحهم الدنيوية، ويأخذون موقفا سيئا من الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية. يرى أمير المؤمنين أن هؤلاء لا بد وأن ينزل بهم العقاب، ولكنه عقاب يخصهم. قد يأتي العقاب على هيئة بعض النوازل أو الكوارث أو الضيق أو التي تسبب صعوبة للناس، ويعودون فيها إلى الله، فيفسح الله لهم الأمل إذا انصلح حالهم، وهكذا. فهو لا يرى أن الأمة الإسلامية سوف ينزل بها العقاب الذي يكتثها من الأرض. هذا لا يمكن أن يحدث للأمة الإسلامية، ولكن قد يشتد العقاب أو يقل بحسب اتجاههم إلى الله. وهو يرى بإحساسه أن الظروف الآن مما يشهده تدل على أن الإقبال على الإسلام والإقبال على الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية يعطي أملا كبيرا في أن الله سبحانه وتعالى سوف يصلح حال هذه الأمة ويفرج كثيرا من كروبها، وأنها في النهاية ستتجه إلى الإسلام الصحيح. ولكن الله سوف يقضي على هؤلاء الذين يجلسون على مقاعد السلطة ولا يفكرون فيما يصيب الأمة من شرور ومساوئ. العلماء يجلسون في مقاعدهم، إذا انتشر الفساد من كل نوع فإنهم لا يثورون ولا يهاجمون. لم نسمع أن العلماء ذهبوا لإحراق بيوت الدعارة أو بيوت القمار أو مثل هذه الأشياء، ولكنهم يثورون ليحرقوا مساجد الأحمديين. إذن دوافع وهذا يحدث في باكستان ويحدث في بنغلاديش. يثورون إذا وجدوا شخصا أو جماعة تأتي بنور الإيمان. أما الذين ينشرون الفساد فإنهم لا يتحركون ويجلسون هادئين في مقاعدهم. هؤلاء يرى أمير المؤمنين أن الله سوف يقضي عليهم وسوف ينزل بهم العقاب. أما الأمة الإسلامية فإن شاء الله مآلها إلى الخير وإلى البركة بإذن الله.